About a year ago, my older brother vanished for 3 days. No warning, no explanation, just gone. For context, my brother Marcus was the most reliable person I knew. He worked the same construction job for 6 years, paid bills early, and answered texts almost instantly. If he said he'd be somewhere at 5 p.m., he'd arrive at 4:50. So when he didn't show up to our mom's birthday dinner, everybody immediately knew something was wrong. At first, we assumed work kept him late. Then his phone started going straight to voicemail. My mom kept pretending everything was fine, but I could tell she was panicking. She called him almost 20 times that night. Nothing. Around midnight, I drove to his apartment. His truck was parked outside. I knocked for almost 5 minutes before trying the handle. Unlocked. The apartment looked normal at first. TV off. Lights off. Shoes by the door. Then I noticed his wallet sitting on the kitchen counter. Marcus never left without his wallet. I checked the bedroom. Bed untouched. Phone charger plugged in. His work boots gone. That was it. No blood. Nothing dramatic. Just empty. Then, I saw his laptop sitting open on the table. The screen was frozen on a map. At first, I thought it was Google Maps, but it wasn't. It was some weird satellite website with a location pinned deep in the woods, about an hour outside town. I took a picture of it on my phone just in case. Right when I was about to leave, I heard something from the hallway outside. Footsteps. Slow ones. I looked through the peephole expecting police or maybe a neighbor. Instead, I saw this older guy standing outside Marcus's apartment. He was wearing a dark raincoat even though it wasn't raining. And the weirdest part? He wasn't knocking. He was just staring directly at the door. I opened it slightly and asked if he needed something. The guy looked startled, like he wasn't expecting anybody else there. Then he asked, "Where's Marcus?" Something about the way he said it immediately put me on edge. I asked who he was, and the guy hesitated before saying, "Tell him Daniel stopped by." Then he walked away. Not fast, not nervous, calm. I watched him disappear down the stairwell. The second he left, I locked the apartment door. Then I called Marcus again. Straight to voicemail. The next morning, my mom officially reported him missing. Police took the report, but honestly, they didn't seem too concerned yet. Adult man disappears for one night. No obvious crime scene, no witnesses. They said most people return within 48 hours. But then another weird thing happened. Marcus's boss called me. Apparently, Marcus never showed up to work that entire week, which made no sense because he'd supposedly been working overtime. That's what he told all of us. Then his boss asked me a question that made my stomach drop. Did Marcus ever mention owing somebody money? The second Marcus's boss mentioned money, my brain immediately started racing, because my brother wasn't reckless. He barely even used credit cards. But according to his boss, Marcus had been acting nervous for weeks, leaving work to answer calls, arguing with somebody outside the job site, checking over his shoulder constantly. None of us noticed because Marcus always hid stress well. That afternoon, I went back to his apartment, mostly because I couldn't stop thinking about the map on his laptop. The woods location bothered me. It felt important. I opened the laptop again and zoomed in closer this time. The pinned location sat beside an abandoned campground near an old lake. I almost ignored it. Then I noticed something typed beside the coordinates. Friday, 11:30 p.m. That was the night Marcus disappeared. At that point, I stopped thinking logically. I grabbed my flashlight, got in my car, and drove there alone. Then I found Marcus's truck, hidden behind one of the abandoned cabins. The driver door was unlocked. Inside, everything looked normal except for one thing. Mud everywhere. On the seats, floor, even the steering wheel. Like somebody climbed inside after walking through wet dirt. Then I noticed the passenger seat. There was a duffel bag sitting on it. I opened it expecting clothes. Instead, I found stacks of cash. I immediately zipped the bag shut. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it. That's when I noticed the cabin door nearby was slightly open. So I walked toward the cabin. The inside smelled awful, like mold and standing water. Then I heard movement upstairs. Heavy movement, like somebody pacing. I called out Marcus's name. Everything went silent. Then footsteps started coming down the stairs. Fast. I backed up immediately. A man appeared at the top landing. Tall, shaved head, holding a flashlight directly at my face. The second he saw me, he froze. Then he said, "You shouldn't be here." I asked where my brother was. The guy stared at me for a second before answering. "Your brother made a mistake." And I realized he had blood on his sleeve. I turned and ran. I sprinted back toward my car. Right before I reached it, headlights suddenly lit up the campground. Police cruisers. 3 of them. Apparently, Marcus's boss reported the abandoned truck after realizing its GPS location still showed active. Officers jumped out immediately. The man from the cabin disappeared back inside. Police searched the building for almost an hour. When they finally came back out, one of the officers walked directly toward me, then asked the question I'd been terrified to hear all night. "How much did your brother tell you?" I told the officer the truth. Marcus never told me anything. The officer looked unconvinced. Then he asked about the cash bag in the truck. Apparently, somebody already tipped police off about it. At that point, I felt completely lost. None of this matched the brother I knew. Then one detective pulled me aside and quietly explained what they suspected. Marcus's construction company had been laundering money. According to the detective, workers were being paid to move cash between sites hidden inside equipment shipments. But Marcus apparently found out, and instead of ignoring it, he panicked. That's when I remembered the old man outside his apartment. "Daniel," I told police everything about him. The detective immediately reacted when I mentioned the name. Apparently, Daniel used to work with Marcus years earlier, then suddenly disappeared after a fraud investigation. At that point, police stopped treating Marcus like a normal missing person. Now they treated him like a witness. They searched the campground all night, but found nothing except blood inside the cabin. I barely slept after getting home. Around 6 in the morning, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. The message only said, "Marcus is alive." I immediately called the number back. "Disconnected." I showed police the message. They traced it to a prepaid phone bought 2 towns away. Then later that afternoon, my mom called me crying. Marcus finally used his bank card at a gas station near the state border. Police moved fast after that. Apparently, highway cameras caught his truck following a black SUV, same SUV seen near the campground the night before. Then another piece finally clicked. Marcus's landlord called me asking if I'd emptied the storage unit behind his apartment. I told him Marcus never mentioned a storage unit. The landlord sounded confused. Apparently, Marcus rented it 6 months earlier. I met police there an hour later. Just boxes. Then one officer opened a locked toolbox near the back wall. Inside were stacks of documents, printed bank transfers, fake invoices, photos of construction sites, and one notebook filled with handwritten names. But one name appeared more than every other. Daniel. Then we found the last page, written in Marcus's handwriting. "If anything happens to me, don't trust the police." Then one officer quietly asked who handled Marcus's original missing persons report. Another cop answered immediately, Officer Reynolds, the same officer who told my mom not to worry the first night. The detective beside me suddenly looked furious, because apparently Reynolds was already under investigation for corruption. And right as they tried calling him, they realized he'd stopped answering his radio over an hour earlier. The moment police realized Officer Reynolds vanished, the entire investigation changed. Now they weren't just searching for Marcus. They were searching for a cop too. According to detectives, Reynolds handled financial crimes years earlier before transferring departments, meaning if Marcus uncovered money laundering, Reynolds could have been connected the entire time. That night, police tracked Reynolds' patrol car to an abandoned marina outside town. Divers searched the water immediately, but they did find Marcus, alive, locked inside an old fishing storage room beneath the docks. When detectives finally interviewed him, the full story came out. Marcus accidentally discovered fake invoices, moving through his company months earlier. Then Daniel contacted him. Apparently, Daniel used to help move money before trying to leave the operation. He warned Marcus that several people inside local law enforcement were involved too, including Reynolds. Marcus panicked and started collecting evidence secretly. That's why he rented the storage unit, and that's why he disappeared. According to Marcus, he planned to meet Daniel at the campground to hand over evidence to federal investigators. But somebody leaked the meeting location beforehand. Everything went wrong after that. The shaved head guy I saw at the cabin worked security for the laundering operation. Marcus escaped into the woods during the confrontation, but Reynolds eventually found him near the highway. Instead of killing him, Reynolds locked him beneath the marina while deciding what to do next. The craziest part? Reynolds almost escaped. Police later discovered he withdrew cash and bought supplies hours before disappearing. He was arrested 3 states away 2 days later. Daniel disappeared before police could question him again. Nobody knows where he went. Marcus eventually returned home after giving statements for weeks, but he wasn't the same. Before all this, my brother laughed constantly. Afterward, he barely spoke. He moved out of his apartment, quit construction entirely, and stopped trusting almost everybody. The weirdest part for me is how normal everything looked before it collapsed. If Marcus skipped one dinner and came home the next morning, none of this would have surfaced. Nobody would have known about the money or the corrupt cop. It all stayed hidden because one reliable guy suddenly acted out of character. That's why I pay attention now when people say something feels off. Because sometimes small changes are the only warning you get before everything falls apart. And even now, a year later, my mom still panics if Marcus doesn't answer his phone for more than an hour. Honestly, After everything that happened, I probably would too.